All right, guys, welcome to CrossFit Grandview podcast number 21. Today, we've got the whole crew right here, well, most of us at least, talking a little bit about training and aging. So just what that progression kind of looks like as we get older. And I've got some real old guys in here. I think, Arlie's 23, so he's going to have some great insight on what it feels like to get older. No, none of us are older, but what we have done is we have more and more experience training older athletes. And then I've started to feel that shift a little bit, going from starting this stuff around, serious training with CrossFit and things at about 25, and I'm 37 now, so I'm starting to creep up on 40, and my approach to training's changed a little bit, and so I thought this would be a good topic to just kind of chat about and go around the table a little bit and just talk about some things. So I have a couple points that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about. How do we continue to reassess our goals and fulfillment through training once we stop PRing everything across the board? So I've seen this as like maybe someone, it might not even be necessarily like someone getting older, but maybe their job or their work responsibility changes. And then, instead of being able to do 2-a-days and train all day, they're down to 4 days a week and they get frustrated. Maybe they just quit training altogether. So some of this can just be a shift in your mentality and just how to maybe fall back a little bit in your training and still feel really fulfilled. I'm going to use myself as an example right here. Until I was 31, 32, my main goal in training was just to get stronger, fitter, faster, and score more points in CrossFit competitions. I wasn't thinking about being 60 or 70 years old. That wasn't even on my radar. But what happened is kind of towards the end, right around like 32, 33 years old, I had a few injuries that lingered for months, and I lost some function. So I remember I had a shoulder injury, and I couldn't throw like a baseball for, 4 or 5 months. I felt like I couldn't throw something. I couldn't do hanging movements. It really bugged me, and because I lost some function, and then I thought like, whoa, what if I could never do this again? And then all of a sudden, that just having good function in my shoulder was way more important to me than scoring points in a CrossFit workout or trying to be really fast. So that's what kind of started me down the road of maybe changing my personal approach to how I just approach my training every day. I can remember 20 years ago now. I was 17. So I was actually already working out 20 years ago. I was 17. Forecasting 20 years down the road, it's not that hard for me to envision at this point now. Like, Arlie, you were 20 years ago.
Good times.
Yeah. But I was almost grown. So, like, I can remember 20 years ago. In 20 years, I'll be 57, starting to push towards 60. And I want to be able to do a lot of the things I can do now. So now my training goals are to be as healthy as possible, fully participate in the workouts every day. So I want to be able to do just our daily classes 4 or 5 times a week. I really enjoy that. A lot of it's just I enjoy the social aspect, hanging out with people in class, getting a good workout in every day, and it helps my energy. I feel better. And also participate in all the challenges. Like, during that time I was kind of talking about when I was hurt, I missed 2 years of the Open. And since I changed that training approach, I've been able to participate in all of them fully, all the workouts, each time. Now, I took some fitness off the table. I don't do as well as I used to, but I'm doing a lot better than taking zeros on all the workouts because I couldn't do them. And then most importantly, I'm trying to enhance my daily life. So I want to have some mental acuity, and what I mean by that is, and you guys can all probably think of times where you've trained so hard at certain points, you don't have a whole hell of a lot of energy for anything else. Like, you can't think straight. Like, you don't want to, you wouldn't want to dive into anything real complex mentally. And so training so hard you can't think straight, or you're not getting your job done after, is something you have to take into account when you're training. doing 2 and 3 a days, when you're starting to do that, I feel like you're surviving the rest of the day. You're not really thriving in the other parts of your life. I kind of, when I really think of it, the business, just CrossFit Grandview in general, really picked up a ton of momentum when I made that shift, because I was able to fully focus on the business, and I wasn't just like completely smoked after, training, and then I just kind of like sit in the office like a zombie and I couldn't do anything. So that's what I really got out of it. Also sleep. If you're so sore and banged up that you're just radiating pain in bed, you're not going to sleep great. You're not going to have a lot of energy. You're not going to have any sex drive. So using workouts to enhance all of that stuff rather than detract from all of that is something that I'm really mindful of. Like, if I do, I have days, at least a couple a month, where I might do a really hard workout on a Saturday, and my mental acuity will go from, a 9 to a 4 on Saturday. I'm like, I got to take a nap. I'm done. But I try and manage that. So these are the things that I'm looking for now, trying to maintain my vitality. That's what I'm looking at now in my training, more so than if I'm scoring points or doing well in the gym. You guys have any thoughts on that? I'm going to just keep looking at Arlie at 23. So
yeah, right. No, I think it's my favorite part of introducing people to CrossFit and elements, is kind of giving them the long, slow trajectory towards the horizon, not the immediate climb up a mountain. It's one of those, if you focus on staying out of a nursing home as long as possible, it makes it a lot easier every single day.
And it's intense workout, so you can get really good results and really fast, but if you take that longer approach, it can keep you in it longer too. So one thing too that I'll think about too, as you get older, your physical capacity isn't going to be measured as much in how strong you are or your aerobic capacity, more in the variety of tasks you can do. So can you do a lot of different stuff? It's cool to see, I think, an older guy who maybe still has a great bench press. I think that's cool. But what's sad to see is if he's so wrecked that he can't really go on a long walk because maybe he trained so hard or he got all banged up. So I think as we get older, looking at things like, can you still run? Can you climb? Can you carry heavy things around? Can you throw a ball? Are you limited by your physical capacity just to enjoy life? I think that's something to, to start to look at as you're getting older, and maybe look at your training. Am I taking, miles off the car, or am I adding them on too fast here? Where am I going with this? So I think it can be a tricky balance.
That's also the fun thing with CrossFit, because the older people that are having all those problems, let's be honest, they never moved. They didn't move for 60 years, so you've got a generation of people that have been working out and physical. What's going to happen in the next 40 years? Who knows?
I agree. That's a great point.
They didn't stop moving. They didn't get bad hips and all that, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I have arguments with my mom about this all the time. She's like, I'm 50, I'm almost 60, it's over. I'm like, that's just, you didn't work out before, you don't work out now.
Yeah. I think my mom's a great example, actually, of she started CrossFit 9 years ago. She hasn't not only not lost any function, she's gained a ton of function that she didn't have even when I was growing up. My mom can do strict pull-ups. Not a lot. She can do full strict pull-ups. She's 62 years old. She can climb ropes. She can do some double unders. It's pretty neat.
Knows?
Yeah, yeah. And then
or we'll all die soon.
No, I think a good way to think about this is imagine maybe 10 or 20 different things you'd like to be able to do as you get older. And I wrote a couple things just to keep me on track. When I'm 70, I think it'd be really cool to be able to run. If I had to run, I can run. I have some sort of capacity to move my body through space and run and not feel like I'm going to completely die. I'd love to be able to do a pull-up, a dip, throw a ball, shoot a basket, play with grandkids, do stuff like that without feeling limited. A big thing I see all the time, Kate and I like to travel. Every time I go to the airport, there are a ton of people in the airport who really struggle to travel. Like, they're getting wheeled around. They're taking golf carts because you got to walk sometimes close to a mile in an airport. You can just see that traveling is a huge struggle for them. They're sitting on a plane and it looks like it's not healthy for them to move around. And it's really, a lot of it, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but a lot of it looks very preventable to me. Just a combination of being older and overweight, isn't great for moving around.
Gravity is a constant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen too is one of the only times I've really noticed we talk about it in CrossFit we're doing functional movements, ones that you'll do in everyday life, and of course you have to lift things up and move things, but in the airport when I've actually I've had to run, I can think of right off the bat 4 different times I've had to run, I don't know, anywhere from a half a mile to a mile across an airport to make a connection with my bags. I mean, a sub 10-minute mile for sure in an airport in street clothes. And I've had to do that and I barely made my connections. If you're not in some decent shape, you're maybe camping out for an extra day. It seems not a big deal, but that's that can ruin a vacation,
I would sprint.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah. But if you can't and you're just you look at the thing, you're just I can't move my body, it's not going to happen. So just a sample training progression, and this one is, I wouldn't even say this is for an everyday member. This is maybe for someone who is think of yourself if you can put yourself in this boat, maybe you're someone like Arlie, or probably any of us in this room. We start training, teens and 20s. We start off building, growing, learning all these new movement patterns. Everything's going up across the board. We're building this foundation and muscle memory for years to come, building our strength base. This can start in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s, depending on when you pick up working out. Or like you said, if your mom picked it up, it'd be, in her 50s or 60s. But I think the later you pick this up, the shorter period of time this big growth building period is going to be. And then from there, you're going to progress into an intermediate or advanced trainee, where it's going to take more advanced training protocols to push those numbers up and bring times down, where let's say you've done the 5x5 back squat program for 2 years and it's just not nudging anything up anymore. You might have to go to a conjugate weight training program, and do some more advanced things to bring numbers up, bring times down. Example would be doing our level 2 program, moving from kind of max out that all level program, you move into the level 2, you're doing more volume, more advanced training. This could mean competing in the fitness sports, so local CrossFit competitions, running, whatever it might be, trying to get everything out of your body and seeing your potential through. But eventually you're going to hit a peak where you're not getting better at everything. Everyone hits it. There's a reason you don't see pro athletes at their best at 48 years old. Eventually you're going to kind of bump your head against your potential and start that climb down the mountain. There's things you can do to push it off. You can optimize your diet, sleep, hydration, mobility. I think that's why a lot of times athletes will hit their prime in their early 30s, around your age, Andy, because your body's starting to work against you just a little bit, but you get smarter and you dial all that other stuff in. So you dial all that other stuff in, and then you can get that, you're doing everything right, and then you can slow that kind of progression down. But inevitably, you're going to get less resilient, and your approach needs to change if you want some longevity in it. Unless you're Rex and it doesn't need to change at all, you can keep pouring that volume on. So there's going to be outliers. Everyone's going to have someone at their gym or something. You can point to that guy who can just do, it seems like they're Superman. But for most of us, if we want longevity, we're going to have to start to shift that approach a little bit. And, I have a couple things that, I think are a good way to kind of conceptualize this. The goal can move more to be consistent over a long timeline. So maybe less like strength cycles, less roller coaster training where you're like bulking and cutting. Like that's not probably a good thing for longevity if you're like bulking and cutting a lot. And then also like less frequent intensity where every day can't be that day where you're just running your head into the ground. You need some days where you're maybe just doing some aerobic activity, doing some skill work, going for a walk. And then those days actually will become more frequent as you get older to where, at a certain point you may be doing like 2 intense days and 4 slower days. And then we talked about this right before the podcast. I remember just growing up, any older adults I've ever seen who are in great shape, they work out every day, like 7 straight days a week. And pretty much nothing gets in the way of that. Because if they stop, like, starting is way worse when you get older. You guys are probably even starting to notice that now. Like, if you take a week or 2 off, it sucks. It's not fun getting back into it. Yeah. So
just hurts. Being
more and more consistent, I think, is something that's really important. So where you can just hit it hard, or like, a guy like Arlie's age could go on spring break and then come back and jump right back into CrossFit, and it hurts for a day and they're like a little sore and they're fine. Like you put a 60-year-old in that scenario and they come back in, like that's when they get hurt.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. So really what I'm talking about is building sustainable habits and aim to be fit all year round rather than roller coastering. And this does not mean like you have to go from being suddenly some sort of badass to just going on walks and like lifting light weights when you turn 35. I personally think, now I certainly wasn't at my CrossFit peak, but when I turned 35, like that whole summer, I can pretty much say I feel like that was the best shape I've ever been in my life. I could run and do all these things at a good level where, I can't even think of times when I was as good at CrossFit where that had all came back together. So like you can keep this all rocking and rolling for a long time. But there's a lot of degrees and shades of gray to this, and it just needs to progress more towards thinking of, I want to keep moving and holding on to these things as we get older. A couple tips: sweat daily. So find some sort of activity. It could just be jumping on a bike, a rower, going for a walk, going for a bike ride, something that keeps you active and moving every day. Because I always notice now, more and more as I've gotten a little older, that day after like a full rest day kind of sucks. Like I'm not as good. So you've always kind of been like that. You've always stayed pretty active and not taken like a lot of full rest days.
Yeah, after having a kid though, like it really changed.
Yeah.
It's not even, wasn't my choice, so.
Sure.
I've learned to maximize what I got.
The time that you have to actually move.
So yeah,
You've got your little basement set up now.
I get what I'm given.
But you probably make all the days that you're in the gym count now.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing. Yeah, as you get older, like your time to train just starts to cut down. Kids are not, like your responsibility just typically grows with age.
You
So
just don't want to anymore.
Yeah.
You just don't want to work out all day anymore.
Absolutely.
I don't think I have to anymore.
Well, you've also built that base where you can maintain.
Yeah, so it's like, did we even need to do as much as we used to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anymore, I don't think so.
No, I agree. But I mean, I think you see that with everyone too. I mean, I'm not inside, like, say, CrossFit Mayhem, but I don't imagine Rich Froning is like on constant strength cycles, like trying to like bump his back squat up all the time. Like, I wouldn't imagine that's his approach to training anymore. I'm sure he's just trying to maintain strength and keep working on his conditioning, you know. Even a Matt Frazier at this point, I'm sure he still does try and do that to some degree, but like he's built that base, you know, where that's not his constant focus. So the next thing is just keeping some strength training. Now, what I mean by this, you want to lift weights through a significant range of motion regularly, but this does not mean we're always trying to get stronger. You know, I don't think the goal, say it's someone who's 70 is trying to have like a 2x body weight squat, like that's not going to do anything for them. Again, if they do have that, they're probably squeezed into like knee wraps and all this stuff, and they might not be able to run. I think the goal is to move through a significant range of motion, you know, starting to move towards doing things like with kettlebells and, you know, goblet squats. If you are still trying to get stronger, aim to maintain or gain slowly. And I'll always talk about, you know, people a lot of times will ask me like, oh, did you hit a PR on that? And I'm like, no, but I tied my last 4 times that I've done, I don't know, a 5x3 on like sumo deadlifts that we did yesterday. And I'm like, maintaining's gaining for me at this point. And then like just with the way you conceptualize maybe a gymnastic move, it'd be like, you know, you can work on a strict muscle up in your 50s if you've had that prerequisite strength, but maybe that's what you're working on, like a strict muscle up rather than trying to explode into like kipping muscle ups like when you're 50. That's probably not a smart thing to do all the time, especially if the goal isn't competition. You're just trying to do it for fitness. Find a rhythm with your sleep. So as you get older, you need to be in a nice rhythm, sleeping, keeping the electronics out of bed, cool, dark room, quiet. I've talked about sleep. Me and you have talked about it on this podcast. Joey, when he was on it, you know, we've done almost whole episodes on it. No one feels like hitting the gym consistently after a bad night of sleep. Maybe you can do one-offs, but like if you're just sleeping like crap, like the workouts are going to start to go. So make sure that as you're aging, like really focus on the sleep. That can really help. And then fuel your brain and your body. Make sure you're eating foods that, you know, are going to support good mental acuity and the daily activities that are essential to you. So make sure you're staying hydrated, eating vegetables, eating protein, good quality fats. We want to avoid regular consumption of things that kind of fall out of that bucket, like, you know, nightly sugar binges, things that kind of cascade into benders that like you get into a rhythm of like you eat dinner and then you want a treat and then you eat a big bowl of ice cream every night before you go to bed. You can get away with that and actually probably need it sometimes. You need to fuel with some sugar. Like Joey would eat like half a sleeve of Oreos because he's doing 4 hours of training a day. But when you get older and you're doing 45 minutes of training a day, that's not the best thing to put into your body before you go to bed.
I got something on that. I think coolest part about that, nutrition-wise, my dad, who probably hasn't worked out since high school football, comes into the gym. He's came into the gym a couple times at like 6 a.m. and thinks everyone in there is a psychopath. But my dad eats pretty healthy. I'd say healthier than most people. He just turned 63 or 64 this past weekend. But at the same time, he just walks fast. Like, that's what he says his exercise is.
Yep.
Like, whenever he has to get somewhere, he just walks there fast. And, I mean, he's still fully functional, like, as sharp as a tack still. Like, if you look at him, you're like, man, this guy works out in some capacity.
Sure,
He sleeps really well, eats really well, doesn't work out too hard, but like he's still got all of his wits about him.
Absolutely. No, that and I saw a whole thing on. You guys know the basketball coach Larry Brown.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, that's what he did is he just walked, but he had like 2 knee replacements. But that dude would just walk for like 90 minutes a day, and like the dude just. I mean, he was like 76, coaching in the NBA or whatever, and he had a ton of energy and was super sharp. So absolutely, that's a phenomenal. If you eat well and walk and get that daily sweat in, like you're gonna keep and maintain a ton.
Yep.
And then just thinking of like your shift and like how you train, like over time. Start to think of like going from harder, faster, heavier every day to your efforts going to be based a little bit more on the desired dose response for the day. So how we were talking about, like those long walks and things. So like, say you did a really hard workout the day before, like it may be, you might not be able to keep it together mentally that well if you train like that again. So it might be time for a long walk, or in the context of a CrossFit workout, scaling or pulling back a little bit on the intensity. Sometimes you have to do that. Like you can't score or PR every day. The mentality of like whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Again, when you're really resilient when you're in your 20s, I agree with this. I think, push it and see what your body can do. Like, you never know until you know. You don't know until you know. When you're 45 and you're doing it for health, you want to live to fight another day. Like, you know where you can go. Like, you don't need to, you shouldn't be trying to kill yourself, again, unless you're trying to get ready for some sort of a competition. Performance in the gym and competition is everything. Again, in your 20s and when you're competing, I love this. I don't think there's nothing wrong with this. I don't want to villainize. I think that's what I was all about, and I think it's almost like a tragedy if you don't find out what your potential was. Like if you didn't try. It's cool to like know you kind of left it all out there, but again, like once you find out, and then you can use the gym to support your life and function, and you can only get stronger if you can express the movement the right way. You're not like doing twisting around like single toe to bars with bleeding hands and stuff like that. Like you're not going to recover well from that.
Will.
Yeah. So that's how I think the shift needs to start to happen over time. I hope you guys got something out of that. It's just something I've been thinking about. And it's not just to make myself feel better about that I'm not as good as I used to be at CrossFit. I don't want to come across that way. It's just something I think that, I think we're about 4 days ago was like the 10th year anniversary that I took over the old Rogue Gym. And I've seen a lot of our athletes evolve over that 10 years who are still with us. And, maybe some people are like, I don't know what I'm training for anymore. I think this can really kind of help just wrap your head around it. So coming up, we're going to go through a few announcements. First thing I'm going to talk about a little bit is just programming for the gym, kind of where it's going. One thing you guys will see is leading up to the Open, we're doing like some pretty frequent Olympic weightlifting. At least every week we were touching some in class, and in the winter we're moving to building and testing a little bit more of the slower lifts, so the back squat, bench press, front squat, strict press, and deadlift. So you guys are going to see those ran a bit in a cycle over the next 3 months or so in class. Along with that, we're testing some of our gross conditioning with the rower and the bike. So we've already done a 2K row, and we did a 10-minute bike test. Next week you will see a 5-minute bike test, and then 2 weeks from now you'll see a 5K on the rower. And then the following month you'll see a 500-meter row and a 1-minute bike test. Don't skip these days if you see them. Sometimes they don't look like they're not the sexiest days. They're not the most fun. Like the day we tested the 2K, I tried to bait people in with some bench press. We're gonna do the same thing with the 5K. People see that like, I don't want to do that. It's not that fun. I'm not moving around. These days are awesome, though. They're the real needle movers, and they give you a baseline where we're going to tell you, hey, row this at 80% of your 2K row. If you have no idea what that is, what those paces are, you're going to be kind of lost on that. So just so you have an idea of where we're going with the programming, it's kind of what we're going to be working on. And then mixed in, of course, all the fun workouts that we typically do. But we're going to kind of touch 1 or 2 of those points a week throughout the next 3 months. And then also coming up, we are shifting our Power Hour Express in the morning class at Grandview Barbell, and we're rebranding that class, changing the format a little bit, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. A long time ago it was a half-hour class, and then it moved back into an hour, but a lot of people never really caught on to it was a full hour. And then now the format's changed in the class, and we've got a ton of good feedback, so we're actually going to rename that class. And Arlie coaches the class, and he's going to tell us a little bit about it. So,
yeah. So for those of you that are currently doing the class, we've been following the programming for about 2.5, 3 weeks now. So none of that's going to change if you guys are currently doing the class, so don't freak out. We are going to change the name to 50-10. That does more outline what we actually do in the class. It's still strength-based. It's still more just compound lifts, testing those, I want to say the more simplified lifts. So the back squat, the front squat, bench press, deadlift, all those primary lifts that we're going to do without any of the extra fun things that we do in the afternoon. So one thing that I realize is a lot of people, in order to get stronger, you just have to lift heavy weight. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it with bands and chains. There's definitely reasons to use bands and chains. A lot of people just want simple lifting. That's what we do in the morning. So 50, part of the 50-10, is just kind of the general outline of within that hour. 50 of those minutes are going to be devoted to some sort of strength building, whether it's a back squat that we do kind of in classes when we run a cycle, so it'll be a 5x5 every 2 minutes, being progressive with it. Sometimes we'll stay with the same weight with a couple accessory lifts after that to add on to it. So that should take up somewhere, typically it's in the range of about 40 to 50 minutes there. And at the end, I think a cool part to add in there is just a little bit of a burner, some sort of Metcon, some sort of thing to get you breathing hard, and they are pretty much as simple as possible. You could read Wattify, and if you have never worked out a day in your life, you should be able to understand what the workout is. Something, like I said, 10 minutes or less. Typically, they're somewhere 6 minutes or less in there. I think Danny Dunsmore is a really good example of this class. He kind of bounces back and forth between power hour and normal classes and power hour and normal classes. Anytime he would get to a normal class, he would get crushed by any sort of the cardio workouts, and he kind of came to me and was like, man, I just wish that we did something real quick and nasty at the end of a power hour workout. So I just told him, look, hey, at the end of Tuesdays and Thursdays, look at those workouts. They take 6 minutes. They'll still keep an engine underneath you. But you get the strength training, but also at the very end, you just get to breathe hard, kind of put your face down and melt your face for a little bit. You're in and out. Again, it's never gone past 7 a.m. Typically, it ends right around 6:50 there, especially if you're dealing with getting to work on time. I like to get people out of there. And the cool part about Barbell, there are showers there as well. So if that's something that you're needing to get to work at 7:30, like I said, the class ends usually 10 minutes before 7 a.m. So you have plenty of time to get in there, take a shower, and get out before work. So
what's an example of one of the burners after class?
So I'll just give the one that we did today. So we had it was just 4 time at the end of a upper body day where we did some benching, we did some bent over rows. I just kind of wanted to flip it, and I wanted to have some lower body stuff for the workout. So it was a 250-meter run. Following that, it was a quarter-mile run. Following the quarter-mile run, it was 40 lunges. Following the lunges, it was 20 push-ups. So quarter-mile run, 40 lunges, 20 push-ups. It was done in about 5 minutes. They were in, they were out, breathing pretty hard by the end of it, but it was super simple. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a fun class. I need to come in there and take that. Next thing I wanted to talk about is our holiday party. So it's our 10-year anniversary. This is going to be huge, guys. So I highly recommend, especially for newer members too, who've never experienced this. This is awesome. We do it at the View. It's off Front Street, so it's down in the Brewery District. We basically throw a wedding there without the wedding part. So it's just all the fun parts of a wedding. So the food, I think we're going to have 3 bars. Kate and I were at Lincoln Social, like testing drinks out the other weekend. Cameron Mitchell is catering this whole event, so they can execute on these drinks. So if you've ever been to like Lincoln Social, like we're gonna have drinks similar to the ones they have there at the party, which is really cool. So it's gonna be a fancy, cool party. We'll have, I think, 3 bars. We're gonna have a DJ, so John's gonna DJ again. So if you've been to him before, dancing, and then Cameron Mitchell food. So full spread of Cameron Mitchell food. Everything's free. It's on us. It's just us celebrating you guys, supporting us. So we put this party on. It's pretty dang cool. So you guys can bring a friend. Mark your calendars down. December 13th from 6 to 10 p.m. One other thing I wanted to announce, Team Tuesday will be the 17th of December on Tuesday, so in a couple weeks coming up, and I have a good one planned already for that. So I highly recommend start to get your workout partner together for that one. We have a really fun one. I think that takes us through everything today, guys. So we will see you next time.